Thank you, Prasoon, for that wonderful session. Making insights truly accessible is a critical step toward building smarter, more agile enterprises, and INSEAD.ai is clearly leading the way. Now, we move into a session that explores the future of human-centric automation, where work is reimagined through the lens of conversational AI. This demo is brought to you by Humac AI, an intelligent employee experience platform that blends natural language understanding, generative AI, and process automation to transform how work gets done across functions, from HR and IT to finance and beyond. Leading the demo is Sarang, founder and CEO of Humac AI. With deep expertise in AI-driven employee enablement, Sarang is at the forefront of shaping intelligent automation strategies for global organizations. Sarang and Dhanashree, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is Dhanashree. I'm program manager at Network Science. And welcome, Sarang. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining
Thank
us today. I give the stage to you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So essentially, if I can just quickly share my screen, then actually, if you can just let me know if that is visible.
Yes, yes, it is visible.
Perfect. So good evening, everyone. My name is Sarang Kamalakar. I'm the founder and CEO at Parenthesis Systems. What we are essentially looking at is, when there are a lot of people who are trying to replace humans with machines, we are the one who are trying to, kind of merge them together, make them work as a team, and which is where HUMAC, which is human machine convergence, comes into picture. It's very important for us to look at when there is an onslaught of technology. We have to necessarily look at how do you how do we actually look at a scenario wherein compute and cognition is actually converging together, and we are looking at a scenario which is like more of not machines replacing the humans, but actually they are working together. So if we look at when we look at a reshaping in terms of an operational excellence in an industrial scenario, right, be it any industry, we're looking at what the real fight that is happening across the industry segment, right? Where the workforce is becoming weaker, where the production output, workforce capabilities, and production cost are being impacted, and the machines are becoming much stronger, right? They are becoming much more intelligent. At the same time, when we look at the data, it always remains to be disparate and siloed, right? That remains to be one of the biggest challenge that we face in the industry segment. As a result of that, what is getting impacted is, when we look at the companies, and I work with a lot of manufacturing companies, small to mid to large segment across the globe. We look at 82% of the companies are essentially having shortfall in terms of the manufacturing or workforce shortages. There are a lot of in terms of increase in the production cost, production time is getting increased, their skills and capabilities are being shortfall. If I were just to give you an anecdote, and if we look at manufacturing as a key segment, which is where one of the primary focus industry that we are looking at, predominantly they're 49 to 60 years of the workforce average age, right, which is already too late. So when we look at this kind of an age workforce across the globe, the operator or the human resources are a big problem, right? A very big problem, and it is becoming more and more severe as we progress, right? And it requires an immediate attention, and that's where we look at. So as a result, what we are looking at when we talk about HUMAC, which is human machine convergence, it really is a cooperator or a co-pilot for a machine operator. It kind of works out as a decision support for the managers and mid-level executives, and it's an AI industry experts and insight generator for the industry leader. So the kind of vision that we are looking at is, if we look at from a capability and skills perspective, right? There's something which we start at the at the left hand top corner, which is unconscious incompetence. to, conscious incompetence. What we are trying to head towards is unconscious competence, right? How can I, let's say, for an example, we are driving a car, and I'll just take an analogy of ADAS over here, right? So when I say a co-pilot on a manufacturing shop floor, can we look at a scenario wherein, maybe there's an operator who's operating a particular machine and there's an error that hits, right? Now, the problem should start from the machine and end at an operator. But essentially, it doesn't happen that way, right? The problem starts at the machine. It comes to the operator. Operator, takes it to the supervisor, then to the maintenance head, then to the multiple hierarchies. So the problem starts traveling through a lot of clutter and hierarchies, right? And as a result of that, by the time the solution reached back to the operator, it's already too late. So how can we look at that unconscious incompetence can be converted to unconscious competence, right? Whereas there is a virtual expert in terms of AI that is actually helping the operator who's doing those particular job, right? And can this happen over a conversation? And that's the scenario which we are looking at. So the customer value that essentially we look at is how can we create a scenario which has got empowered workforce, which is through an assisted intelligence that we look at, amplified productivity through an augmented intelligence wherein AI is actually teaming up with the operators or the managers. How can we look at a faster time to value, which is where we look at some of the scenarios like constructive interference, right? When the error is coming, when the machine is going down, is there an opportunity for AI to actually, come in between and say, hey, Sarang, do you need a help over here? And, it's just offers that, okay, what are the immediate actions that needs to be taken by the operator so that the machine, downtime or, the delays and everything can be avoided. As a result of that, the fourth quadrant is very important as we look at is how do we build something which is called as an autonomous intelligence, where we actually start looking at a deeper enterprise value and things like that. So some of the aspects that I would love to show you at the prosody of time. I will probably, keep on skipping through some of the areas. If you can just give me a second. I'll just hold on for a screen share, just a second, Dhanashree.
So while you're bringing out your other screen, I have a question from the audience.
Sure.
Basically, the question is that can you tell a scenario in which where you talk about unconscious competence, sorry, unconscious incompetence, and how it has transformed to conscious. I'm so sorry. It is a very interesting analogy. Yeah.
It's a
So
brilliant thing.
unconscious,
Let's say,
yeah.
for an example, I'll give you a very, very
Yeah.
amazing laymanish example, right?
Yeah.
Let's say there is a building that we all live in, right? And nowadays all the buildings are very smart buildings, right? It has got fire alarms and things like that.
Yeah.
Think of a scenario. There is not a non-Indian visitor that you have in the office, right?
Right.
As soon as you have the Havan Puja that is going on, the smoke alarm starts blinking, right?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, everybody is like, okay, everybody knows that there is a Havan that needs to happen, and the system or the alert or smoke indicators could have been paused for a while, right? But it doesn't happen, and then when it starts going off, people start running around that, okay, now it needs to be looked at. So whether now this is something which I call it as conscious incompetence, right?
Incompetence. Okay.
But let's say, for example, 2 years down the line, you open an office in the US, and now you have foreign visitors visiting your office. Some of the people who have actually visited your previous office, right? When they go there, they will when the puja is happening, they'll remove their shoes outside. So because they know,
Yeah.
and then they start looking at, hey, have you checked if the fire alarm is off and something of that sort, right?
Okay.
What we do is the difference between this is we have given a contextual intelligence, right? The moment you give a contextual intelligence to a person, it starts becoming unconsciously competent, right? As a
Okay.
result of that, this becomes a very, let's say, for example, if there is a machine which is going down, right? And now there is an AI system which is coming in between and telling you that, okay, hey, you know what? These are the things that you need to check, right? As an operator. Now, the second time when the same system goes down for the same machine goes down for the same reason, now I would be, already equipped with the scenario how to handle it. And then I can tell that, okay, these are the checks that I need to look at and do that. So uh, is this happening anyways in our real life? The answer is yes. I mean, we are definitely moving from unconscious incompetence or unconscious competence to unconscious, or the both the segments, I would say. I would not want
Yeah.
to, but yeah. So,
Okay.
so
Understood.
if I have answered, I don't know if I have answered.
No, absolutely, absolutely, you did.
Perfect, perfect. So let me share again, the
Yeah.
screen
Sure. Sure.
and so is it visible? Perfect.
Yes, it is visible.
So when we look at Humac as as the from a dashboard perspective, there are certain things that we look at. So Humac is human machine convergence, and what we are looking at essentially collecting the data from the industrial shop floor, collecting the data from the operators who are running that particular machine, building something which is an ecosystem intelligence, right? So when we actually start collecting that particular data, it does not just collect and become a dumb data, but it becomes something which is like we create an intelligence layer in between, wherein we start putting across that how can I start conversing with the data. So I'll give you some of the aspects and some of the experiences that we have looked at, Dhanashree. Is when you look at manufacturing segment, the biggest problem at this point of time is, the data which I talked about, which is not talking to each other, right? Multiple systems not talking to each other. That's one of the problem. But the second bigger problem is, even if I have the data, I don't know how to derive a value out of that data, and which is a much bigger problem when we look at these particular aspects. So as a result of that, if I give you, let's say, a scatter plot or a heat map kind of an analysis, right? It takes some time for the experts to understand the data, right? Let alone the shop floor people who are like supervisors and managers. They've never looked at those particular data. The second aspect and second challenge is, if you look at the operators and managers and supervisors, they are not supposed to be, having a capability to decipher the data. Why should they, right? Their primary job is to look at the machine and make sure that the machine is running, the production is happening at the optimum level, right? So it's how can we decode these kind of a scenario wherein I have the intelligence which I desire, and at the same time I don't have to go through some crazy graphs. So what we have started doing is, and this is the dashboard which we'll essentially look at is, whenever there is a production report that is happening, right? We've created something called as SHIVA. Now SHIVA is a bot that talks. SHIVA is an acronym for Shop Floor Hidden Insights Value Aggregator.
Wow, Shiva. Okay.
So what you do is, it's interesting that Shiva is omnipresent. So I wanted to create something which is like
Yeah.
omnipresent
Right.
across the systems and
Yeah.
collecting data. So if I were to look at, let's say, for example, if I'm looking at an operational efficiency, at any given point of time, I can just invoke Shiva. There's a small icon wherein I can start invoking the Shiva, and Shiva appears, right? And I can just simply ask that, okay, what was my OE for a particular shift, right? Now, what it does is it starts collecting the data. It starts giving me answers in the form of whatever the data collection that has happened. Now I start looking at when I say that, okay, and this is a conversational intelligence that we are trying to build, right? It's like when you don't know what to ask, right? If you give a cursor or a prompt saying that, okay, start with this, then the conversation start becoming much more fluent, right? And this is exactly what we are trying to look at, whether it is an operational efficiency, whether it is capacity utilization, any aspect, right? You can actually invoke Shiva from there. You can just ask a question. I mean, there will be certain predefined questions that are there. Once you start having a conversation, you can actually start going deeper those particular aspects in terms of how do I understand. Now, as a result, at the back end, what happens is, if I can just move on to a particular screen. Let's say, for example, we are looking at this particular graph, right? And I don't know how do I read this particular graph, which I was mentioning, right? So if I can just invoke Shiva and say, hey, why don't you explain what is happening over here? Now, what it does is essentially it starts taking these particular scenarios and starts explaining me that, okay, these are the things that are happening in this particular graph. And now my conversation with the data becomes far more, efficient. Another problem when we look at from a manufacturing or multi-hierarchical organization is sometimes the leaders are wanting to have data in a particular fashion, right? When they tell it to the next second tier, it gets dropped by the vision or whatever the expectation gets dropped by, let's say 20%. As it starts going down the hierarchy, the expectation starts getting dropped. And we call it as a communication gap, right? So by the time it comes back to the leader, it is not the report that they wanted anyways, right? So there's a lot of time where that get wasted in terms of getting these information, getting these particular aspects. So what we've created is we've created a scenario which is, let's say, we've got something like a production companions, right? Where these production companions are nothing but agentic frameworks or agents which are working for the leaders across the hierarchies. And I can do any damn thing with this, right? Let's say, for an example, I mean, some of the aspect that I am looking at, since manufacturing is a close in industry that we are closely working with, some of the aspects like failure mode effect analysis, it's getting diminished. People are not looking at failure mode effect analysis on a day-to-day basis, right? So can we create an agent which is unconsciously looking at those particular aspects, which is at the back end? It keeps on observing what are the failure mode effect analysis that is there, what are the severity levels, and then keep on coming up with certain constructive interference, if I that's what I call it as, right? That whenever there are some problems, I can come and say, hey Sarang, you know what, this is going haywire, why don't you check these particular things? These needs to be at these levels, or there are thresholds which are going up and down, and so on and so forth. And actually, when we talk about some of the aspects which I was talking about, right, speaking with the graph or generating a code, I can simply ask a question that, okay, can you generate a line chart, showing that particular thing, and it gives me a chart. I don't have to go to any person to talk about these particular. I can just simply converse. By the way, this conversation is not just chat. We have covered somewhere around 300 languages. It can have a verbal conversation. So I'm envisaging a scenario where there is let's say, factory in Michigan, Detroit somewhere. There is a European, a Scandinavian manager who's managing it, and then maybe there is a Marathi or a Telugu or a Tamil operator who's operating that particular machine, right? Now, you look at a scenario wherein each of them are looking at the same factory scenario or factory environment in a completely different fashion. Uh, I wanted to create a intermediary in between them who understands the intelligence and who can communicate. So if a Marathi operator is there, he would be able to have a verbal conversation with with Shiva and understands. A Scandinavian or a Norwegian person would have a Norwish or a Danish conversation with Shiva, and an English head can have an English conversation with Shiva, and all three of them are asking the same questions to the data, and it is giving a similar kind of an answer on the data perspective. It goes deeper, Dhanashree, from a multifaceted perspective, right? We just don't look at it only on the data, but we actually, so let's say, for an example, if there is a VMC machine, right, or a CNC machine, I can actually give an image and it can generate a code from the image, right? It can actually tell that the machine it can go to that particular level. For some of the algorithms that we have been toying around with at this point of time, we've actually looked at some of the scenarios wherein we are increasing or enhancing the cycle time by 60%, right? Some of these scenarios in terms of machine tools or the PLC programmings are, right? These are the programs which are made, let's say 5, 7, 10 years back, right? And it is getting repeated because everything is now working fine, working smooth. Why do I need to reinvent the wheel, right? And somebody who's actually done that program has actually moved on. I mean, he's gone somewhere, or it was an outsourced agency. Think of it that there are inefficiencies which are built into that program, right? Now, these many number of years, we are carrying those particular inefficiencies. So if I can say that, okay, I can increase the cycle time by, let's say 30%, which means that if this program is running for X lakh pieces, into 30% is the time wasted already. So when we start looking at those kind of scenarios, it is actually a phenomenal impact that gets created on the shop floor absolutely instantaneously. And subsequently we can start looking at multiple aspects, right? Wherein I can go deeper into the machines. I can start looking at what are these machines essentially producing. I can go deeper into those particular aspects. I can start looking at scenarios wherein how was it for 45 days? What are the things that were there? I can start looking at insights in terms of what's working, what's not working, the production's time, what are the machine health, what are different aspects. So think of it is like, what we are trying to create is something which is a very different level of observability, which is a very intelligent observability platform, right? It is observing the data which anyways, not being observed at all, right? People would take the insights and inputs on the basis of, I'm talking about the scenarios, Dhanashree, which ranges from a company which is, let's say, 30 crore in terms of the turnover to 3 billion in terms of the turnover, right? The practices are more or less same. Right, the data is disparate. Somebody is actually getting those data points or data collected from multiple things, putting into an Excel sheet or manually tapping into the doing it on a register, and then on the basis of that there is an analysis which is happening. I call it as very hypothetical way of looking at the analysis, right? So what we are essentially looking at in terms of the vision, as an organization, or which keeps me awake in 18 hours a day, kind of a scenario, right? Is I want to eliminate the dependence on the capability of an operator or a person who's actually running a machine. Can we look at a scenario wherein even if there is a capability gap at a shop floor level, can we look at AI can come to the respite of the human beings and can start enforcing or reinforcing the frontline operators who can actually start producing the optimum results, because that's where everything is actually boiling down. So how do we look at human intelligence and machine intelligence coming together,
Right.
and creating a scenario which is
Yeah.
like, human machine convergence? So
The way
that's
you mentioned at the beginning of the webinar as well, that this is meant to enhance the capabilities of humans. So I think this is where the observability comes around. So I think that is, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, when we look at industry segments, right, at this point of time, and this is my second venture, Dhanashree. I've been into industry for 25 plus years. My co-founder has been there for 35 plus years. He's worked on 6 end-to-end lights off factories across the globe. After doing those particular things, we are now looking at a scenario that, okay, humans, 2/3 of the activities are in the manufacturing shop floor are still human, are still manual, and you don't have robots coming in which will be replacing humans. So might as well build something for the operators, for the humans, and that's what Humac is all about. So I don't know, we've got another 5-7 minutes as per
Yes,
the
yes, we
time.
do. We do.
So
We do.
do we take questions, or can I how does it?
Yes, we can take questions. We can take questions, but you might as well complete the presentation and then we'll take up the questions that are coming up.
Sure. So
Yeah.
it can further go into the depth of it. So the way we look at it, one of the elements which is typically an operator kind of a scenario, right? We don't look at some of the aspects from the workforce perspective, right? What is the skill to outcome kind of a scenario, right? If there is a highly skilled operator, he's producing substandard or sub optimal production, right? How do we start looking at these particular scenarios? So we are actually working on those particular aspects, wherein we are so the way the system and platform works is we've got something for the operator, we've got something for the machine, and then we have got something for human and machine, right? And these are the platforms that we essentially deploy. We are backed by IIT Mandi, IIIT Hyderabad, METI, and we are also a part of an accelerator which is based out of Singapore. That's Industry 5 accelerator. So we are pioneering into Industry 5 as we speak, and there are implementations that have happened in the US. We have customers based out of India. We are exploring Southeast Asia very aggressively. We will be doing a couple of implementations in Malaysia and Indonesia. And of course, Middle East is another market that we are looking at. But yeah, it's pretty much, I can go on and on, Dhanashree. I'm just
Yeah.
at a time tab.
So
I don't want
yes,
to,
there's one, there are a few questions coming from the audience. So I'll take one which is the most relevant. And I think this is a question which has been asked to all AI companies, including us, that what are the challenge you face while collecting data from such siloed system, like for example, manufacturing. So what are the challenges? How do you face those challenges? How do you go about that?
First and foremost challenge, the challenge is not from the technology or integration perspective. I mean, we've been able to look at a scenario that we can seamlessly collect the data from the machines, right? We are not dependent on manual entry of the data sets, right? Anywhere. So that pretty much solves the problem in terms of the sanctity of the data. But the challenge that we typically face is in terms of aversion or apprehensions from using the system, right? The moment you have something which is coming on top of your head, people will start looking at, hey, is there something which is, getting into my day-to-day activities, and is it going to increase my job work and things like that? So yeah, there are certain challenges which are there as we go from an implementation perspective. But I can tell you that, okay, a month down the line in the system, the operator starts coming back and saying that, hey, you know what, this is actually helping me, or the management. I mean, we recently did an implementation where they did not have any expectations, from the perspective that they had few failed instances and installation, right? So they said, okay, let us try a third time, right? And the moment we started creating some of the ripples, right? On the seventh day, we actually spotted an error in their, machine program, and it started, creating that kind of a confidence. Now, a month down the line, they are actually ready to, kind of share most of the things, right, including the financials, cost of productions, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there are challenges. I would definitely say that the challenges are more from a adoption perspective, the fear of unknown kind of a perspective. But once we kind of cross through that, it's all good. As far as the technology, IT, OT integrations perspective, I don't see there is a bigger challenge.
Okay.
Because when I talk about some of the machine and some of the aspect that we have catered to, there is something which is pre-built intelligence that we've already created, right? So last 5 years, we've already created a repositories of parameters that needs to be collected from the
Okay.
machine.
Wow,
This
interesting.
is super intelligent. So if you give me, let's say, a VMC machine, for an example, with a Fanuc controller or a Haas controller for that time, the average implementation time is 7 minutes.
Okay, wow.
And the data is, on the 61st minute, the data and dashboards are ready, and you can log into the system and you can see that, okay, within last 1 hour, this is what has happened. So now that intelligence has already been built, and this is something which is off the shelf. And then from there, system starts learning on its own, right? It starts becoming much more matured as the data starts getting collected. So gone those days. I mean, I would like to call, from that perspective, where people used to come, they used to implement, and then 3 months they used to figure out that, okay, how do we actually come up with a dashboard, right? And it doesn't make sense for both of them, neither the customer nor the service provider. I mean, I think that era is definitely, we are calling that era off with
Yeah,
Humac.
yeah.
So that's how we kind of deal it.
And one very quick last question. Since you already mentioned about the apprehensions and security, issues while collecting the data, so how do you, I mean, how do you address that? How do you face that? That is okay.
So the entire data that we collect, so whether it is data at the node or data on the edge, I would say, to data in transit and data at rest, all the data is completely encrypted. We have something which is called as PKI, which is public key infrastructure, wherein everything is encrypted. It's a secret or secure tunnel, I would say, with which the data goes. In addition to that, there are certain safety mechanisms that we've implemented. So if I go ahead and say that we are actually working on a scenario wherein the edge device that we put onto the machine can start acting as a firewall for the machine as well, so that it does not only prevent the data which is being collected by Humac, but it can actually work as an IT/OT interoperability node,
Yeah.
wherein it starts working as a firewall for the machines. And that's the vision, that's the aspect that we are looking at. And apart from that, the data on the cloud is being audited day in, day out.
Okay.
We don't look at a scenarios wherein the label data of a tenant is getting into the another tenant or something of that sorts. So it is
Correct.
completely, even if the model training is happening, it's completely unlabeled. Yeah,
Yeah, it's completely safe.
yeah.
Great. Okay, Sarang, thank you so much for this session,
Thank
for
you so
this
much.
very insightful session. So we started off by addressing the challenges of the workers on field. Then we quickly went to how Humac is solving that using Industry 5.0. I would say we have entered that era now. Until now, it was an Industry 4.0,
Yeah.
but now we can safely say that we are already into Industry 5.0.
Absolutely.
Then very interesting, we spoke about Shiva, we spoke about how your systems are observing data, which even it is difficult for humans to capture. And finally, we closed off with the questions. So thank you so much, Sarang, for this session.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful being there.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being, to all the audience, thank you so much for being a lovely audience.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.